Good morning, viewers. Thank you very much for watching a late diplomatic leaks. Due to technical problems, we were not able to start on time at 10 o'clock as stated on our flyer. But however, we are here. We want to make a move and try to do in the next 40 minutes to make sure that we cover up the topic that was on our diplomatic leaks show. Good morning, I'm Dr. Matsanga, right from the Political Command Center, and across in Nairobi is Miriam Ugutu. Good morning, Miriam, my co-host.
Doc, a very good morning to you, and indeed good morning, good afternoon, good evening to our viewers wherever they're watching us today.
Yeah, thank you very much. Our viewers across also in the CBD of Nairobi is none other than Daniel Wesonga. Good morning.
Yes, a very good morning to you, Dr. Matsanga David, at our Political Command Center. Good morning to my colleague Miriam Mogutu, our viewers here in Kenya, East Africa, Africa, and the rest of the globe. It is my pleasure to be on the conversation this morning.
Yeah, thank you very much, viewers. Wherever you are in the country of your choice, location on the continent of Africa, good morning. In Europe, good morning. In America, good night. I don't know whether we can say good night. They are still very far in America. Australia, you are going back, good evening. In Russia, China, thank you very much. This show is Diplomatic Leaks. It goes behind the enemy lines or diplomatic lines to find out what the diplomats are saying on peace, security, social, economic, vaccines, whatever, name it, politics, whatever you want to talk about, we find it behind the diplomatic leaks. We go back and see what is happening in Ethiopia. And our topic today is peace in Ethiopia. We want to thank, our role this morning is to thank those people who have taken part in the peace initiatives in bringing Ethiopia to where it is and actually creating a condition for reduction of death, warmongering, and bringing people together towards a solution, amicable solution for the people of Ethiopia. Today, we want to look at President Uhuru Kenyatta's values, silent diplomacy, that is beginning to show its head in Africa and East Africa in particular. President Uhuru Kenyatta has played a greater role, a very big role, quietly, silently, together with silent partners. He has been able to deliver a peace, a quiet, a reduction of animosity. There might be difficulties still hovering over the peace agreement in Ethiopia. But one way or the other, these difficulties, obstacles, challenges will be overcome. We want to thank President Uhuru Kenyatta for the gesture, the hard work, the encouragement he has given to both parties to come to an amicable solution for the people of Ethiopia. Yesterday, he issued a statement which called for all parties, to work for a permanent ceasefire, that cessation of hostilities agreement, which is called CHA in conflict resolution studies, is achieved in Ethiopia. As we speak, Ethiopia from yesterday, it was hosting the African Union Council of Ministers and Executive Council of Ministers that will pave way for recommendations and the agenda for the heads of state when they arrive on Saturday and Sunday. Our viewers, this is very important, and I think it is very, very crucial that we talk about this. What are the obstacles, challenges, solutions to the peace process in Ethiopia? Over to you, Miriam, for the quick notes.
Very well, Doc, indeed, as we wait for the meeting at the African Union, and perhaps just a bit of a background information on the latest mediation process, as we know that Ethiopia has been embroiled in a conflict that has now gone for over a year now. And so I'm just trying to get this information. So once it's, and we know President Uhuru Kenyatta has been very pivotal, Doc, as you've mentioned, in trying to, mediate and bring peace there in Ethiopia. So President Uhuru Kenyatta has appealed to all the parties involved in the ongoing conflict in Ethiopia to cease hostilities. In a statement on Wednesday, the president said that Kenya concurs with the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres in calling for a ceasefire and pave way for negotiation. On Tuesday, Guterres said the people of Ethiopia continue to suffer greatly from ongoing conflict and bloodshed. And the ongoing conflict started in November 2020 as the government ordered a military offensive against the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front, TPLF. Since then, thousands of Ethiopians have been displaced from their homes and hundreds have lost their lives. A humanitarian crisis has also increased as hunger continues, the situation in the affected areas. And perhaps, Doc, as we start this conversation, it's not many, African leaders that have been able to speak on this, situation that has been ongoing now in Ethiopia. But we've seen President Uhuru Kenyatta even coming out and making this remark. It's very important. It's very important. At the end of the day, we want a peaceful Ethiopia, however that will look like. But it's important that other leaders speak out. So President Uhuru Kenyatta coming out and boldly making these statements, I think perhaps it will push towards a better conflict resolution there in Ethiopia.
I agree with you, Miriam, fully that the situation in Ethiopia needs sober minds. First, the Tigray Liberation Forces seem to have softened their stance on a way forward. Went back, laid down a bit of hostilities after several people, including some of us here, trying to speak to the people, the lowest cadres of that Tigray Liberation Front up to the president to say, please, some of these things, if you heighten the temperatures, you might get quite a lot of difficulties for you in the future. This is your country. This is a country that you need, where you need peace. Peace is more needed in Ethiopia than any other city in the world. Why do we need peace in Ethiopia as Africans? Ethiopia is our base. Ethiopia is our country where our headquarters of African Union are. And surely if you have a mother where the children are born and, they are fed, they are grown, if the mother is scattered, if the father is scattered, then the children won't be able to stand the calamities of that come before the world at the moment. So in Ethiopia, if we have peace in Ethiopia, the whole of Africa, the entire Africa will have peace, because people know that our headquarters are safe. But Miriam, tell me, if the headquarters is shaking, is being threatened by rebels, 20 kilometers, 18 kilometers, we are coming, this one we have taken over this. No peace can be achieved in Africa. Where did we go wrong? We went wrong as Africans. And I've seen this trend, which I want to be very open and discuss. Here, maybe people can give me the views. I've seen the trend of Africans, either you abstain, abscond, you don't vote. Kenya on Ukraine and Russia. We should actually, in fact, for me, I'm going to ask African governments. We create our non-aligned movement. We used to have non-aligned movement headed by Cuba, India, Indira Gandhi, Nehru, Fidel Castro, Milton Obote, Nyerere. Those are the men of Benabera. Sekou Toure, Marshal Tito of Yugoslavia. Miriam, you saw how that thing was powerful. Very non-aligned movement. And it used to give Nicaragua, Ortega, all those places. If we see the world today is shaping itself towards regional, international conflicts. When the USA lost its base in Afghanistan, abandoned the Afghanistan people, and went home at midnight and started sorting out those they can take. Those they couldn't take, they left them for eating by the Taliban. I knew there was something wrong with the US foreign policy. And that something wrong with the US foreign policy can now be seen. If there are people here who said I was wrong, the United States of America has been looking for where to dump that anger. And that anger can be dumped on African continent if we are not careful. Because the whole of the entire region of Great Lakes region, that is Democratic Republic of Congo, Malawi, Mozambique, Tanzania, Sudan, South Sudan, and Somalia, that is the Great Lakes region, Ethiopia. So they found a way where to sneak in and deliver. They went on the side of Tigray. You see that how they operate. I was warning people that they were hovering with planes. They want to find out where they can leave logistics. And those logistics were found in Tigray. They left them there. They made it difficult. The Ethiopian government also became hardened, battle hardened, called in its neighbors, called in its allies, Turkey, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia. These are the countries that are lining behind Addis Ababa, the main Addis Ababa towards the main Tigray. These are countries that have come in to partition. So how do we resolve the conflict? We resolve the conflict not only by talking to these parties, we also talk to these other parties of foreign nature. One of the parties that the African Union should start talking to about peace in Africa is Turkey. Because Turkey seems to have come in full blast to replace the former colonial masters who actually colonized us. Turkey has come in to commercially override the entire Africa by giving money while planting seeds of discord and dismemberment of Africa. So for me, it is just a game that has just started. I just want to thank President Uhuru Kenyatta for his silent peace initiatives, talking to both leaders, to the leaders of Tigray and the leaders of Ethiopia, because I was very skeptical about President Olusegun Obasanjo, the former president of Nigeria. He can never deliver peace. Miriam.
Yes, indeed, and we've been waiting for Obasanjo, to give us a report on his ongoing efforts, because AU appointed him as chief mediator there, and he hasn't told us much. And the last time he was speaking, he wasn't giving us so much hope about the situation there in Ethiopia. And Doctor, I know you immediately they named him. You raised a lot of questions, judging from what he's been able to do from the past and his past records. And clearly you were right, because looking at how things are and where things are today, nothing really has changed. And he's not even telling us what's the latest. We've been waiting to hear, for him speaking on behalf of AU and telling us what's going on at Ethiopia, but he's not told us anything yet. So we just, I guess, sit and wait. Daniel Osonga, perhaps your thoughts in what is going there.
Thank you so much, Miriam Mogutu. And you can see whatever effort that President Uhuru Kenyatta has been doing behind the scenes. And that is what Africa needs to learn from, that sometimes it's not about holding press conferences. It's not about talking about tough talking that really brings peace and tranquility in regions where we have the crisis. but the silent diplomacy that the president has been doing, you saw how many times he flew to Addis Ababa, and sometimes even in a day, while engaged here in Kenya, he would fly to Addis Ababa and come back even before noon and be able to complete other things that he was actually working on. But no one has actually heard President Uhuru Kenyatta calling a press conference discussing about maybe whatever they are doing in Ethiopia and the progress of even the peace talks and all that. Sometimes we need to retreat in the tranquility of such kind of silent diplomacy, and also concentrate more on the actions and effort that needs to be put into that particular process, rather than just talking, holding several conferences and wasting money that is being given by those stakeholders who want to see Ethiopia or any other country getting to a point where now they can come, all the warring groups can come to an agreement and a truce. So to me, I believe that is all we need sometimes in diplomacy, where people do not actually go out there creating all kind of scenarios and spectacle. But at the end of the day, they don't deliver on whatever they have been paid to do, but rather they are there to actually scavenge and see where an opportunity arises so that they can take a token out of it. But we need people who can go behind the scenes and pull the strings to ensure that all these people are able to achieve peace and unity of purpose to move forward. We've not seen only that with Ethiopia. South Sudan has also been in a relative period of tranquility, save for a few push and pull here between Riek Machar and President Salva Kiir. But nonetheless, Kenya has been very, very instrumental, and especially the government of President Uhuru Kenyatta. And you remember he appointed former Vice President Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka to be the envoy for the peace of South Sudan. And they have been doing quite well, Miriam, in that regard. So you can see what a man can do on a small scale is what AU has been unable to do on large scale using President Olusegun Obasanjo. So I think, to me, AU should actually call President Uhuru Kenyatta and all the people who have been supporting him, those all activists like Dr. Matsanga David, who have been talking about these issues, giving out recommendations on what they think the government of Ethiopia needs to do, on what they think the TPLF needs to do. And these are the sentiments that have been shaping the dialogue that has been ongoing behind the scenes. Therefore, the AU should be able to call all these people on board and ask them, how have you been able to achieve this? And what is the best way forward? And how can we be able to replicate these all over the other parts of Africa where we are facing crisis? That is how you can do a comparative implementation and analysis of all these situations. Otherwise, you cannot use the old same methods and expect newer and different results out of your efforts to bring peace and tranquility in Ethiopia or anywhere else in Africa. They say that all dogs do not learn new tricks, and therefore the AU has to change tact. It has to bring on board people who have been able to do things like President Uhuru Kenyatta in their own small ways and have been able to achieve impeccable results. That is what they need to do. Look at the situation that we had in Cabo Delgado. President Kagame, of a very, very small country like Rwanda, was able to take his troops there, and actually, slowly but surely, peace and tranquility is starting to actually show up along the horizon. They should call President Paul Kagame and ask him, how do you do it with your military? Look at President Yoweri Museveni, whatever he's doing in Congo, in combating ADF. You know, in a not gone on, it hasn't gone on for quite some time, but already we are seeing results. We are seeing commanders of the terrorist group being captured, and actually some places of Congo being liberated. Those are the leaders that should be brought on board to bring the practical application of skills and knowledge and virtues that they are using to achieve such milestones, and be able to bring it to the table of AU, so that AU can be able to replicate it on other sides of the continent. Remember, the world is changing. Olusegun Obasanjo was a president some years back, and for the more than 2 decades that he has been out of leadership, a lot of things have changed, Miriam. He's no longer in touch with the reality on the ground, with the reality of the conflicts in the continent of Africa. Therefore, selecting such a man to be a negotiator in such a conflict zone, it's tantamount to actually ignoring and seconding the role and the mandate of the AU. So I'll propose that the African Union actually examines another alternative way of looking at these particular conflict resolution mechanism. And for my suggestion is by working with those people who in their small ways have been able to work and be able to bring peace and tranquility in areas of conflict. I therefore submit, Miriam.
Very well, thank you, thank you. All right, Doc. Yeah, still the issue of, the mediator who was, picked by African Union to help, Ethiopia through that process. But just even going by his track record and what is happening even in Nigeria itself, and he's been unable to even try and help and sort that out. So how is it that AU thought it would be a wise idea to have Obasanjo be the mediator in Ethiopia and successfully do that?
Miriam, there is one problem, and the problem here that all the leaders of Africa hear me, and I hope, Fred, you will take this. The leaders of Africa must sit down. AU is just 20 years, it was 20 years on 29. This month, the AU made 20 years. We changed it from Organization of African Union. I was there in Durban. Plenty seated, I had nice drink by then. I rejoiced. I thought AU was going to be a miracle, a savior of this continent, Africa. The AU today has nothing but to offer except paperwork and so many documents written in diplomatic English, which all of us assume it is zero. The AU today has no army. The AU today has no court. The AU today, Africa is left naked. The AU today condemns some coups in one nation and does not condemn coups in Chad. That's the AU. There was a coup in Chad, and this coup in Chad was not condemned. What happened to African Union? Then you go rush quickly to condemn the coup in Mali, Guinea, Burkina Faso. You are condemning these coups, but a coup took place in Chad, where the chairperson of African Union, executive chairperson of African Union, Central Committee that governs Africa and African affairs, he comes from Chad. Miriam, he never condemned the coup. Double standards. The AU went to DRC Congo with I'm looking at recycled leaders who run around with uniforms of observer team. Very soon from May, you'll see them running around at Nairobi hotels with uniforms that I'm a monitor, AU monitor. What do you observe? You don't observe elections. You come to enjoy the sunshine and the food and the women of those countries. And then you go back because there's nothing, Miriam. The same report, which since I saw AU monitors, they write almost the same language. You go back 20 years back, the language is almost the same. It talks about the election was free, fair, transparent. There were few difficulties, but it was all right. The people's will was expressed. Isn't that the language of African Union? Yes. Isn't it time for us in Africa to sit down as scholars, academics, and say, yes, is this an organization that Nkrumah would have wanted? Is this an organization that Sekou Touré, Gabriel Nasser, Haile Selassie, Jomo Kenyatta, Nyerere, Patrice Lumumba, Sekou Touré, Amir Kabura, in Cape Verde? Is this the organization he would have wanted? Agustino Neto, Milton Obote, are these the organizations they wanted? Is this the organization? Did they want to see this organization the way it is today? An organization, Miriam Mogejit, you have brought an example of Obasanjo. Why do we choose Obasanjo all the time? Obasanjo is not the only former head of state. Why is it that Mr. Obasanjo is the man put in the forefront? A few weeks ago, Obasanjo was taking photographs with the leader of opposition in South Africa of Uganda. What does he do? He simply tells them, go and dismember that country, then I will come and talk to Museveni. What does he do? Go and dismember this country, then I come and talk to Emerson Mnangagwa. You saw what he was doing in Zimbabwe before when Jangarai was there, until we caught him up. We caught him in Zimbabwe trying to negotiate money from Morgan Jangarai. And I exposed him on front page of the Herald, where Songa Googled that. Obasanjo elections 2008 in Zimbabwe and 2012. Google that. You bring that report here. We caught him in the Hotel Mikos, negotiating with the MDC to declare Mr. Morgan Jangarai the winner. Is this the man that you can recycle in every African continent? You are trying to resolve the problem in Somalia, you still send Obasanjo. There is now chaos, a standoff in Somalia. Can Mr. Obasanjo tell us why Somalia has not held elections? Why? Miriam, is he not special envoy of AU? Obasanjo should tell the people that I'm a French senior intelligence officer on African continent. I work for Alcatel. I work for Alcatel Telephone. I'm the life chairman of Alcatel Africa chapter. I link up with Total Oil that I used in the Biafran war to kill Biafrans. We can talk about that for all the time until the cows come home. But when you recycle one leader who, as if there are no other former leaders, there are so many former leaders in Africa who can actually bring peace. Thabo Mbeki, for example. If you send Thabo Mbeki, Chisano, these leaders from Southern African part have proved to be more peacemakers than the leaders in West Africa. There is Mahama. When they selected Mahama, people refused. Because he's going to tell the truth. You see? So look at all these places. Are there no former leaders who can come up and be independent and say, no, the situation is not very good. The situation is A, B, C, D. We have some Njoma. Some of these leaders are still working. I know some of them have become old. They are not able to do their things. We have those leaders in Botswana, where democracy has nurtured so well. It is now being fragmented by NGO politics. But for AU to recycle one leader who has actually passed the age of usefulness, because Obasanjo is heading towards a senile stage where you have to wake him up in order for him to remember what no, honestly, he's coming to 80-something. Tuambiane ukweli. Let's talk the truth. He cannot remember some things. I am one of the few people who has worked with Obasanjo on DRC Congo. I have worked with Chisano on Uganda peace process in Juba. I worked with Mbeki on Darfur. I have an experience with these leaders. Chisano wakes up by 5. When you are in Juba, in the forest, in Garamba Park, Chisano was already up by 5 in the forest with the rebels, with me. We are walking in rebel territory. I was with Chisano, walking in the rebel territory. No plane near us. Planes were left very far. And they say we are looking at the trees at 5. You know, the sunshine comes there very, very early. We are looking at the trees and they say, look at this tree. Look at this cabbage. The rebels had planted the cabbage. One cabbage is as big as a Miriam's house. As big as where you are now, sitting room. You can eat one cabbage for a week. A tomato is as big as Matanga. And we are looking at those prospects. Those are the type of leaders. But now AU selects a leader like Obasanjo who sleeps up to 11. The peace process already started at 8. You only come to pick resolutions and read. I'm not discriminating anybody on age. Age is catching up with everybody. But African Union needs to stand up, needs to wake up, needs to make sure that AU sends envoys that are worth, that they have energy to solve the problems other than recycling Obasanjo, who is senile. He is gone. He sleeps in meetings. How are you going to solve a problem when you have been sent to solve a problem and you are sleeping? And you are being woken up. Obasanjo's age is like the age of Mr. Paul Obiya. Obasanjo is supposed to be in a home, being looked after at his library. But because he's out looking for money, in order to go and put his library, there are other leaders on the African continent who can do that. We have leaders, former leaders. They can lead us in these countries. We have leaders like Paul Mbeki, Thabo Mbeki and us in the technical team. We went in Darfur under tough conditions. We resolved the issue of Darfur. And let me preach to some people here to know. They think when they see us here, and because they are now running around, they are doing that. No, we did this thing a long time ago for us. Matanga here, I was there. I've flown to Darfur, I know the capital, I've eaten food there. Professor Gambari, we have so many people, good people in Africa. Professor Gambari, where are the professor? These are men who should come from Nigeria. If you are looking for a country, medium that can resolve conflicts on the continent of Africa, bring Professor Gambari, the former foreign minister of Nigeria. Very powerful guy. He was in Darfur with us. Bring Chisano, a very powerful person. There is another president of Mozambique. If Chisano is tired, there is another man in Mozambique, a retired president. Democracy has moved on. Chikwete might not be well, not be able to move too much left and right. But you can get, at least Chikwete can listen. But Obasanjo sleeps up to midday. So tell me, if you have gone for peace process of Ethiopia, you are sleeping up to midday in Radisson Blue. You find the people have already prepared a text. Have you solved the problem? Have you solved the problem? If there are people who challenge me, I have not discriminated Obasanjo on terms of age. But I'm speaking the truth to help President Uhuru Kenyatta to resolve these problems. Africa, AU must bring in energetic guys who are here, who are able to convince, sit down, not people who are there bidding for United States or bidding for George Soros. Am I clear this one on this? Yes. Am I clear on this? Let's have it. You can't have your cake and eat it all the time. We went to Democratic Republic of Congo to resolve the conflict of Nkunda. Now another rebel force has started M23 yesterday. Have you seen? Media, what is all this Africa? What is this? In fact, it's better to go and sit in Europe. I'm telling you, my sister. Because you tell people in Africa, they don't listen. Uganda goes into Congo, M23 starts. Who is funding the M23? Tunadanganya. Eh? Who is funding the M23? Yesterday, it has revived its operations heavily. And they have arms. Where did these arms come from? Mr. President Uhuru Kenyatta, you are the chairman of the Peace Security Council, Medium, and I'm the chairman of the Peace and Security.
Peace and Conflict Council.
And the conflict in Africa. You are the chairperson, Mr. President. I am asking this as you fly towards Addis Ababa. I'm told I'm not allowed in the hall because of Muhammad Faki, but I will be in Radisson Blu. Also on Saturday. Ethiopia, you can't touch me. Mr. President, I will be, they gave me, Zenawi has not revoked my entry into Ethiopia. I was given a key over Addis Ababa because I was one of the few people in 1987, 89, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91 in London, together with Faki, Esaias and Zenawi and Dr. Tedros and the current president of Tigray. Where was this Dr. Abiy? Wapi? Where is he? Where were you? Shut up. Where were you? Harassing people, creating a peaceful country with a GDP, a very good GDP in Africa. People we have resurrected from food, from hunger, to a GDP that was strong in Africa. Is there no person who should speak? You want speeches that impress the audience, like a P.L. Lumumba, not me. From Matanga, this mouth, not me. Hello, Matanga, poop, bad things. They will come from here. PLO can soften. I'm not PLO. I did not study English language as my master. I studied Africa on how to defend Africa and how to defend Pan-Africanism. You give me an audience on Africa, I will be held, carried high shoulder, and you will demand more time. Let's be honest. I'm not going to talk to please people that we are okay when we are having coups coming in every country. Medium, I want to predict it to you. There's another one coming in a bigger country now this time. It's going to fall very soon. A big country in that whole area. You watch out.
In ECOWAS region, yeah. All right.
Yes,
So,
there's another one coming because the soldiers. There is a problem that I want to express here. Medium and Daniel. Let the world know. Every time our countries in Africa, Uganda, Kenya, we take our officers for training abroad. In Sandhurst, in the United States, that we are training them abroad. But you are training them in a democracy. Are you with me here? You are training these officers in places where there is democracy. And they take 2 years courses. They learn the democracy of those countries. They come back in a country where there is no democracy at all. People were asking me, and today let me tell you why coups occur. Is because you have brought younger generation. Can you tell me why the generals are not the heads of the coups? In Mali, there is a commander who is actually seated at home. And the soldiers have taken over. The younger men have taken over. He has not been touched. Walimwambia mzee, thank you very much. We are gone. We have taken over this government. You are the general, the CDF. You are the commander of the armed forces, but sorry, because we make a mistake, a very big mistake. And this mistake we make in Africa. Instead of taking our soldiers to Tanzania, to Munduli, to train, or to Kenya to train where you understand your democracy, we take them to Sandhurst. Miriam, are you seeing my point? You mute, unmute. Are you seeing my point?
Doc, you know, you're very right, because when you look at the coups and what has been happening and you hear the history of these coup leaders, one of, like in Mali, he had gone to, he had trained in France, and others had trained in these other countries. So they go there. And apart from seeing democracies and perhaps wanting to come and replicate, you never know, maybe even those foreign forces might want to work with them to come and overthrow their own government. So what you're saying, actually, it could be having a lot of, you know, perhaps some insights, but a lot of
my dear sister, I am a member of the International Institute of Strategic Studies, a life member. 2, I am also a member of Chatham House, a life member again, Chatham House. Those are houses with research. I have access to the library, midnight, 3 a.m., 2 a.m., 4 a.m., I enter the library as a member to study. You cannot stop me when I'm in London. I'm sorry. So if you want to stop me, go and hang. And I tell you the truth. So these studies are there. You are taking officers from a country which has no democracy. You are training them in a country that has democracy. And these officers, when they return, and then they look behind, they are quickly promoted to run battalions. The commander of the military battalion, the commander of the brigade, the commanders. Now, when he tries to practice what he studied in his Sandhurst, that brigade will be different. Are you with me now? It will be charged. What is this is wrong. This is wrong. This is right. This is right. That is where the trouble begins. The second obstacle we have, because this is why conflicts occur, like the one of Ethiopia. And those who are solving must know this. The components. If you take your soldiers to Tanzania for training in Munduli, there is a very good big training camp in Tanzania where there is real discipline, real training. And once you are in Munduli, you come back with that sense of ujamaaship, Tanzania. You go back to your country, you will be very humble with your heart, and you serve the civilians very well. Train officers in Kenya. Kenya has got very good training schools. Yes, they are stable. But some of these countries make terrible mistakes, especially ECOWAS. They speak French. They carry the man who overthrew Mr. Conde. Mr. Conde recommended him to go for a special course of commando in Paris. So when the commando returned home, He looked at the values of Mr. Conde and the values of this small boy in France, the small boy, what is his name? Macron. I don't know how to spell anything from France. I can't spell anything from Britain, but not France. Macron. Is that correct, Miriam? Because in France you need to eat some frog. Macron. President Macron could be even approaching these leaders. If you look at all the leaders who have taken over in the coup from Chad, they have all trained in Paris. I've done a research on them. The one in Burkina Faso was trained in the Paris military. So who is feeding them the money? They want money, they want power, they want democracy, a new democracy which they cannot use. When they reach in the middle of power, they become even like the former dictators. So here we are. Africa is at crossroads. So you mark that point and mark it seriously. One day you can bring it out and ask people, how on earth do you send your officers to democratic places and expect them to come back, not to overthrow you? For the first time, I think today we have agreed 100% fully, Miriam, that is the trend happening now. Another coup before we finish, and another conflict, which President Uhuru Kenyatta must, as the Peace and Security Committee Council of Africa, is the conflict of Khartoum. In Khartoum, we have a problem. The generals themselves were commanders in Darfur. Now, what they were making a mistake. You know why they overthrew this, they overthrew for the second time. After they had been advised seriously that, you know what, you are in chaos. They didn't know, Miriam, that the International Criminal Court, Mr. Karim Khan, who was flying to Khartoum to sit and eat rice and mutton with them, had 59 warrants sealed. And while he was there, convincing them to hand over Bashir, this is 59 warrants. He didn't tell them, Duglo, you are on the list. He didn't tell them the president there himself he was meeting was on the list. He's on the list now. So when they were told that the moment you hand over Bashir, the next thing is ICC to open this and seal the warrants. Isn't it, Miriam? Now it becomes public that even you know why the statement in Khartoum is, my dear, they will not restate that of Prime Minister. The people will demonstrate and demonstrate and demonstrate. In fact, they will burn their shoes and their legs. But no general currently now will give up power in Khartoum. I'm now telling you that if you didn't know. Because they discovered this. They discovered that, oh, and I'm telling you, it will be very difficult for Mr. Karim to travel to Khartoum. And Mr. Karim, if you are listening to me, talk to me nicely. I will tell you more. Don't mangamanga Karim uko Khartoum like una mangamanga hapa Kenya. Yeah, because some of these things, I tell the truth. So that when a catastrophe happens, don't tell me I didn't tell you. The generals there have discovered you have warrants for them. So next time, Mr. Karim Khan, when you fly there knowing, have one leg outside in the plane. Because they might end up detaining you to embarrass you with your files and they take them. In fact, that is the action they are going to take. Sorry. You know, when you cheat somebody somewhere, you think you will run. There, we have network. I don't want to speak like I told you. That network, the word network, Jermaine, is very important, Miriam. Karim Khan did not know that I know the generals in Khartoum. So you go there again, asking for Mr. Bashir. You will ask by paper and a virtual Zoom. You know, don't play. Don't play with people who have network. We can network you. Yes. We can. Africa is facing challenges. Karim cannot issue a warrant on me. What have I done? I'm not fighting anybody. I exposed the Sudan issue. That if they want, then we go back on the real thing of Sudan. How was the case? We bring it up and then it plays in this court. They will see who will fall. Not Matsanga. It is them. Because they affect so many things on Sudan. Plus the 59 warrants that are hidden in the ICC against the leaders of Sudan. How will peace come to Africa then, Miriam? Tell me. That's why the Prime Minister of Sudan, Miriam, cannot be reinstated. Because it has now been discovered that as soon as you reinstate him, hand over power to him, the first thing he will do is to ask for the biggest plane that can take over 100 people and dump them in The Hague. So we have a problem. Back to you in the studio as we finish.
Very well, and just going back to what President Uhuru Kenyatta said in regards to, the situation in Ethiopia. There's something he said in, to want to bring everybody together, to have an inclusive dialogue. Perhaps it's about time. My Wi-Fi seems to, all right, I got it. Seems to be having a bit of some issues here. So this is what President Uhuru Kenyatta said. Indeed, an all-inclusive national dialogue conducted in the spirit of compromise and accommodation will go a long way in easing the burden of conflict to all the affected communities throughout Ethiopia. And when President Uhuru Kenyatta is speaking of an all-inclusive national dialogue, perhaps it's easier for people to listen to him because we know where our country was after the last elections we had. And after sitting down and realized if he didn't reach out, to the opposition leader, Raila Odinga, the country would have hurtled towards even more dangerous path. And so he's saying, could you extend a handshake, for both sides, extend a handshake for the better good of, Ethiopia as a country and for its people. Daniel Wesonga, the importance of including everybody, because it's out of perhaps the TPLF feeling they were excluded after Abiy came to power that has brought the country to where it is today, just part of that and other problems they've been having historically. So the importance of having everybody on the table.
Absolutely, Miriam. And of course, that is a workable and practical solution to the problem that Ethiopians are actually facing currently. And the reason perhaps why President Uhuru Kenyatta has fronted such a proposal is because of what is happening here in Kenya. Since we had a handshake in March of 2018, 3 years, 4 years down the line, right now, we have not seen anyone going to the streets. We have not seen people engaging in acrimonious verbal exchanges and all that. And when you go to regions like Nyanza or Western, where they felt they had been sidelined by the government, they have the most happiest lot in this particular republic. When you go to northern frontiers counties, who for so many years felt neglected by the government of the day, they are the same people today who are working closely with the government of President Uhuru Kenyatta. And this is because of the dialogue, coming to meet in the middle by all the sides of a dialogue that it has done to the peace process in Kenya. So I believe, Miriam, as Kenya, we were at a very, very bad place in 2007, 2008 than Ethiopia is right now. Because whatever conflict that is there in Ethiopia, it is a certain region against the government of the day. It is not Ethiopians against Ethiopians, you know, civilian, a civil war sort of, maybe let's say in Rwanda in 1994. So to me, I believe this is the way forward. This is the best way forward, rather. We need to bring all the stakeholders on the table. The people of the Tigray, through their leaders, need to come on the table. The government, the national government, the federal government of Ethiopia needs to bring its leaders on the table. Let them talk out. Let them come up with a consensus. And this is after ironing out all their issues. They can have a handshake of sorts and be able to address all the acrimonious issues that have been raised by both sides, and therefore bring back the country to the path of peace and progress. And of course, that will be something that will be long lasting, other than having this side blaming the other, of this side acting in a way that is not maybe inspiring confidence, or maybe some kind of truth in all these particular process. So I believe whatever suggestion that President Uhuru Kenyatta is bringing on the table is practical, simply because he has applied itself in his own government. He has seen whatever has been happening, even here in Kenya for some time, and he believes it will work with Ethiopia, owing to the fact that the problem in Ethiopia might not be as deeply rooted as the one we had in Rwanda or in Kenya, which is based on deep tribal hatred and actually tensions. So it is a problem that could be solved, and I believe whatever President Uhuru Kenyatta has given out there is the best solution that they can be able to have as a country. Ignore about whatever Olusegun Obasanjo is talking about. He's used to going to such conferences, taking money from multinational corporations, taking money from foreign agencies and spies, and therefore him is a wheeler dealer. He is open to anyone who comes with a bigger bill. So I believe that is not the rightful person who should be given the mandate of initiating a peace process. Mind you, Miriam, this is the same person who went to the elections that were held in Ethiopia, which were very, very fraudulent, and he gave it a clean bill of health. Why? Because he was given a stipend for that. So I believe he can never bring a genuine solution to the problem, because if one side trusts Olusegun Obasanjo, the other one will view him with a lot with distrust and contempt. So I believe President Uhuru Kenyatta is the right man to propose any deals or any way forward for Ethiopia, owing to the fact that he does not have any interest in Ethiopia. He's the president of Kenya, for God's sake. And Dr. Matsanga also has proposed Africa has no shortage of leaders. We have former leaders who have been in the leadership recently, who understand the landscape and the kind and the type of conflict that Ethiopia is facing. Maybe they could relate it to their own home countries, and therefore they are more viable than even Olusegun Obasanjo. Let the net be cast wider, and let us have leaders like President Uhuru Kenyatta or any other leader who can bring on board a practical and a workable solution to Ethiopia. I submit.
Well, thank you so much. Very well said there, Doc. As we conclude, President Uhuru Kenyatta obviously understanding the need to bring everybody to the table, and is advising now his brother and the president there in Ethiopia that, hey, for Ethiopia to hold and for this peace to hold, everybody in the community of Ethiopia has to come to the table, and to find a lasting solution, it has to come from everybody to the, being represented on the table and their voices being heard. In other words, President Uhuru Kenyatta is just saying, hey, it's about time. The handshake, it's about time. We just do this for the greater good of the country and the people of Ethiopia as we conclude.
First of all, I want to conclude by thanking President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. And these are my comments takeaway. I want to thank President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta for his efforts in bringing or trying to bring peace in Ethiopia. The values of silent diplomacy, the values of conflict resolution, the values of resolving conflicts of such a high toxic war depend on strategy. One of the strategies that can be deployed in Ethiopia is to give and give, not to give and take away. Is to give and give more, and give more, and give in more incentives. Incentives to both sides. What are the incentives? The most important incentive, fellow Africans, on the question of Ethiopia is the peace. Without peace, you can't have the buildings in Addis Ababa standing. Without peace, you can't have food transported to various areas, mountainous countries, areas of Ethiopia. Without peace, you can't have the water coming. Without peace, you can't have the roads, the cars, everything. So an incentive, the biggest incentive of a conflict resolution is to get, to give, and give, and give. But there is a conflict where you give and take. In this case, Ethiopians are one. There is no give and take. This is their country. The war is not being fought from outside. There is no foreign intervention, foreign war, except the question of Eritreans. So we ask those countries surrounding Ethiopia, especially Eritrea, to keep off the affairs of the Eritrean people, of the Ethiopian people, so that give and give and give strategy that President Uhuru Kenyatta is using silently can hold. Thank you very much, Mr. President, for efforts that you have made in bringing peace in Ethiopia. God bless you. God bless Africa. I'm Dr. Matsanga. Thank you.